Welcome back. I'm so glad to have you and to know that you're still here with me. Now let me take you through a journey that should settle the case as to why it's completely unnecessary to condemn yourself. I'll tell you why. Listen. Instead of living in regrets, feeling guilty, and condemning yourself, what you should do immediately after this segment is to fight negative emotions and switch them. That's what you should do. That's so profound. Now, the reason why negative emotion or condemning yourself does no good is, listen. No, why are you condemning yourself? Because people said so, or because God said so, or what? Because listen, at the end of the day, before you had the opportunity to choose what lifestyle you will want to live, you were already designated an offender, a sinner, before you had the opportunity to do anything. As soon as you were given birth to by your mother, as soon as you were making your first cry, you were already a sinner. You have done nothing. Maybe all you have done is a cry, and you're already said to be a sinner by life, by God, by the provisions of human existence. So why in the world would you do that? No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that because one man did something. His name is Adam, and because of what he did, all his offsprings were designated and condemned to death. He didn't have to do anything. So you need to wake up and realize that. And because of that action of Adam, look at the next set of things that follow. Because when you understand the factors that led to your addiction, you won't whip yourself. If you take the time to sit down, study the factors that has brought you this far. For example, for most people who struggle with addiction, for most of them, they are merely victims of premature exposure from neighbors, from classmates, from family members, from friends, study mates. What is even annoying is that some of us became victims of what we're dealing with from people, responsible people we were looking up to, our uncles, our big brothers and sisters, pastors, people who went to for succor and for help, role models, celebrities, coaches, mentors, people you respected and were looking up to. And it's no story. I've counseled with all kinds of people, messed up by uncles, messed up by coaches, messed up by pastors. When you were tender, without the capacity to make an informed decision, you found yourself in this situation that has changed the trajectory, the narrative of your life, and you're condemning yourself for what? Another category of people were victims of, they just had a desire to belong. They just had this feeling of emptiness that comes with a desire to belong to a group of people, to be associated. God created us to live in communities. In the heart of every individual is a vacuum, a God-shaped vacuum. Only God can fill that vacuum. It is that desire unknown to us for God that makes us to be running around looking for where we belong, who to affirm us, who to validate us, who to give us accreditation, who to accept us. And then a lot of us just zooming off like that ran into the wrong hands and they messed with us. But it was God calling us. But unlike Samuel, who went to Eli, the right person, who now guided him to God and say, hey, Samuel, that thing you're feeling is God calling you. Now, when next you have that feeling, say, here am I, Lord. Speak, your servant heareth. Because Samuel went to the right person who guided him. He found purpose, found destiny, and reached full potential. But for many of us, we went to the wrong people. We went to all kinds of people who misled us, who abused us, and look at where we are. And even going to the wrong people, so-called, is not something for which we should be judged. Those were the people in our immediate environment, and they messed with us. For many of us at a very early age, how in the world should any right-thinking person condemn you or condemn himself for this kind of situation? There's another category of people who were just victims of direct demonic setup, properly calculated and premeditated by the devil. You were ambushed, hijacked, captured, and enslaved by demonic interferences, which could have been caused by anything. And there is still some people, you won't believe it, who are primarily, they're just battling with bloodlines, blood circles, and patterns. I'm talking about family patterns. I'm talking about the fact that for some people, these traits, these lifestyles are purely genetic. They run in families. If they could take a journey to their history, it's possible that their father or their uncle or their grandfather or other family members may have been victims of the same thing that appears to have moved from person to person. How on earth should you do yourself this much damage to accept the burden and the condemnation that you impute on yourself? You don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do that. Instead, no matter what category you belong to as to how you found yourself in this situation, for some people, they grew up as a child. Even though they were boys, they were tilting towards feminine characteristics and traits and manifestations. For some of them girls, they were tilting towards masculine manifestations, and they didn't have parents, caregivers who were smart enough to guide, to tailor. They just allowed the child to exhibit that continuously. Children are given to us in their tender state when it is possible to mold, to direct, to provide the template that will govern their lives. And then a lot of the times, caregivers, parents just watch us derail and how do we accuse ourselves, condemn ourselves for the situation that we found ourselves. So the proper thing to do is to pursue the right emotions so that we can engage the right actions that will lead to the right outcomes. This is so important. To bring this segment to an end, take home the following critical points. Number one, God has never had problems with our weaknesses or our sins. Whether the one that we committed, whether the ones that Adam committed and imputed on every one of us. God never has it. He has no problem with our being sinners because we became sinners before we had the opportunity to choose. His problem has always been, what are you doing about the arrangements? Knowing that Adam brought everybody into this, God swung into action and made a provision, an escape route. He's put in place arrangements for our freedom out of sheer love. All he wants us to do is to accept that provision. That's all he wants us to do. Accept the provision of escape, because it never was your making. So it's important that we get this clear. Sin and weaknesses was never our choice in the first instance. Before we got here, it has already happened. Now, even if sin was not your choice, when you remain in it, it becomes a choice. If you choose to not accept the provision, do nothing about the provision that has been made, then it becomes you accepting, you endorsing, you willingly submitting to what Adam, you endorsing what Adam has done. This is so important. So don't break your head about where you found yourself. Take responsibility for now deciding whether you want to adapt or adopt what Adam did, or whether you want to adopt or adapt what it is that God is talking about. This is so important. Sin was never a choice, but remaining sinners becomes a choice, and that could be and is punishable. We should not condemn ourselves for what nobody's condemning us for. We should not blame ourselves for what nobody's blaming us for. We should just accept what has been provided as a first step in the remedy. And I believe that the rest will take care of themselves. I'll be right back to share with you some important thoughts about conviction, and then about how then do we switch these emotions when we find ourselves in it. What exactly do we do to switch it? I'll be right back.